Are the actions that Israel is taking so far reflective of the advice that U.S. officials have been giving regarding targeted, precise strikes in Rafah, or are the Israelis' actions beyond that?
I am not going to get into I'm not going to do two things. Number one, I'm not going to get into the private advice that we have given them. Two, I'm not going to offer an assessment about whether that aligns wholly with the advice that we have given, because to do that, I'd kind of have to lay out what it is that we have told them. But I will say that this does appear to be a limited operation so far. But as I made clear, it does to a great extent depend on what comes next. And what we have seen so far is the ordering is not just this limited operation, but the ordering of the evacuation of 100,000 people. And we have made clear that we don't think the kind of military operation that would follow such an evacuation is one that we can support because of the dramatic impact it would have on the civilian population there and the ability to get humanitarian assistance in and deliver to those people.
You and other American officials have reminded us consistently that the U.S. has been clear about what it thinks about a major Rafah offensive. Have you been coordinating with allies and partners on the potential consequences should Israel launch such an offensive?
So I'm not going to speak to that. We have largely because I'm not going to speak to what decisions that we may make if Israel does launch such an operation. We have made clear that they have to make their decisions about policy, and we will make our decisions about our policy. Obviously, we discuss that with our allies and partners around the world. We discuss, Secretary, every time he meets with one of our allies, one of the first things on the table, oftentimes even before whatever bilateral issue we have to discuss, they want to talk about what is going on in the Middle East and what is going on with respect to the war in Gaza. So we do talk about this sometimes in quite a bit of detail, but I'm not going to I'm not going to read that out publicly.
Okay, I have two more on the region. One is on the hostage talks. There's been some reporting that the U.S. may be making promises about the length and the permanence of the cessation of hostilities, promises that Israel may not be willing to keep. So can you clarify whether the U.S. and Israel are actually aligned on that front, or whether the U.S. is making some unilateral promises?
So I'm not going to talk about the details of these negotiations, and I hope you'll understand why. It's something we have tried to do since the beginning, is not to talk in too much detail about these negotiations because of how sensitive they are, and they have never been more sensitive than they are at this moment, where we think a deal is possible, and we are trying to push one over the line. I will say that we have closely coordinated with the government of Israel on this matter. We have been in touch with them on a daily, oftentimes an hourly basis, and will continue to do so.
Okay.